Hello, it's me again, Ophelia Does Magic. Today we are doing a video response to Katie Flower's video, her tag, If I Could Only Keep 10 Tarot and Oracle Cards. So here I am. I have my essay with all the reasons why, and I have my current 10 must-have decks right in here. I mean, actually there's maybe a little bit more. I mean, I have honorable mentions. This was pretty difficult for me to narrow down. As I've mentioned on my channel before, tarot decks and oracle decks, cards of all shapes and sizes are really where my allegiance and my temptations lie, so this is going to be pretty difficult for me, but let's get into it. Okay, I wrote this in a particular order. I don't really remember the order, but let's just go in order. So the first thing that I have is the Cosmic Slumber deck. That's like obviously this was included because this is the first deck that I got. This was the thing that started it all. This was made by Tilly Walden. It's published by Liminal 11, which I love. It was purchased at a Barnes & Noble just randomly. I picked it up and I thought this looks interesting. I think it was this particular card, and I remember looking at it and thinking this art looks like it could be right up my alley. But the pictures that they chose to represent, so I think there's like the Death card, you've got Ace of Pentacles, King of Cups, Princess of Pentacles, Queen of Wands, Lovers, and the Hermit, I believe. I'm not sure. But yeah, I saw these ones and I was like, oh, the art looks great. It looks right up my style. It's very like Tumblr-esque, if you remember being on Tumblr in the early 2010s or even before that. But there was something that I just didn't really fully enjoy, but I was like, screw it, let's just try it. It was like $25 or something. And then I opened it up and it was organized by suit, and all the suits have a certain color scheme, and when you lay them all out, they're absolutely stunning. They're so beautiful, and the art is really like beyond words. I mean, I very much so resonate with the art in these cards. I think there's something about I mean, I don't want to call it like an anime style. It's not really that either. It's just a very beautiful illustrative style, and you can even see the texture of the cold pressed watercolor paper. I mean, you can see some of the blooms. The pigments in here I can tell are really, really pretty. I mean, I have some watercolor pigments that kind of remind me of what I'm seeing here, so it also is familiar in a way, and they're just so evocative. The illustrations are beautiful. I love that really bright fiery magenta cyan combination that is used for the swords. The pentacles suits, for some reason, all of this pentacle colors remind me of India. Not this guy, and the guru kind of looks, you know, kind of stereotypical, but in terms of like these colors, this beautiful chartreuse green with the coral and the yellow, like that combination for some reason just reminds me of, I don't know, like Southeast Asia. It's just, oh, so abundant, so beautiful, so lush. And the wands are beautiful. The fire, oh my god, the torches. Yes, yes, yes. The wands, beautiful. Everything about this is beautiful. This deck, I also have not only a first time, you know, like this is my first, you know, like that kind of virginal love for it, but also the first reading I ever did with this deck was incredibly powerful. It cut straight to the heart of the issue. I'm going to say that many times in this video, just forewarning. But I did a reading because I was stuck in a place in my life, and I was basically at my wit's end. I was feeling, trigger warning, mental health issues. I was feeling pretty suicidal, like on a regular basis. Like every single day I was having suicidal ideation. It was pretty intrusive. I had gone to therapy. Therapy was not helping. I called the suicide hotline. That was certainly not helping. And my family and life situation were two exacerbating factors that I just didn't have, you know, the locus of control was not really there. I didn't really have an option to do something else. So with my limited range of options, I finally turned to tarot and I was like, screw it, let's just try this. And the reading that I did it in the bookstore at Barnes & Noble, and I remember I had Googled some tarot instructional videos first because I knew that tarot cards, you know, there was a way to do it, and there was a proper way to do it, there was a way to be respectful, and I didn't want to do anything that could have been perceived as like half-assing the situation, so I tried really hard to go in with a full awareness of what was going on, and I did, and I broke down crying in the store because it really illuminated for the first time ever the idea that like everything that you need, all the queries that you have, the answers are in you, right? The cards are not giving you any answers that you don't know. The cards are simply putting a spotlight, shining a, you know, clearing the path for you to lead yourself to your own conclusions. And that was a very, very profound moment for me. And it was the moment that I knew that tarot was going to be a part of my self-love journey, my healing journey, my reparenting journey, like everything that I needed to do to fix myself from the inside out was going to come from within. It wasn't going to come from anything external. You know, like there are external prompts, there's art, there's images, there's music. You can do all kinds of ritual work to get yourself in the mode and to kind of signal to your deep mind that you're going to do some serious work. But at the end of the day, you and yourself alone and these cards, you're going to have to do the heavy lifting. And so that was this moment, that was this lesson that this deck gave me. And so I obviously have to pick it, not just for sentimental reasons, but also because it taught me something very, very powerful about myself. The next deck is another deck that was relatively new in my journey, and that is the Star Spinner Tarot, made by Trungles, manufactured by Chronicle Books. I mean, this one is probably my dream tarot deck. I don't own any doubles of anything, but if I were to buy a double of anything, I would buy a double of this one. The reason being that this is probably the best art I've ever seen in a tarot deck. Not necessarily like for tarot per se, I'm not saying that it's like the definitive book on tarot, but I mean, it is the pinnacle of art to me, like my personal art preference. And that's what I mean in terms of coloration, in terms of theming, in terms of just the depiction of the human figure and non-human figures as well. It's just beautiful. I just want to draw your attention to the inner cover. I mean, that is exquisite. It's beautiful. It incorporates, this I think has that anime-esque style. So I can see that there's an influence of anime here. There's an influence of the Art Nouveau movement and Alphonse Mucha. There's an influence of like East Asian mythology. I also see a little bit of like ancient, you know, like some of the themes and motifs in Renaissance art. I mean, it is just beautiful. Also, you've got like this celestial design. The backs are this pearlized pink. Oh my goodness, they look like Clo cards from Cardcaptor Sakura. They are beautiful. And I've also seen that there is rich fairy tale imagery, like, oh God, I don't even know how to begin to explain my love for this deck. It has to do with the delicate line work, the color, the pairing of colors, the dynamism of the characters. Like the poses are so dramatic and so elegant, and the colors can be joyful, they can be evocative, they can be mysterious. It also shows like lots of different kinds of people. Sometimes they're animals, sometimes they're like, you know, like non-human, like nymph kind of fairy creatures. There's lots of different expressions in here. So expressions of gender, expression of sexuality, you know, there's allusions to certain things in history, and it's not always like the same 5 grim fairy tales that we hear over and over again. I'm pretty sure the Cup Suits has like this whole thing with the Little Mermaid. I mean, it is just a really stunning deck. I mean, I could lose myself in the cards of this deck and come back to it day in and day out, and it was just, oh, so pretty, so freaking pretty. Like, look at this Ace of Swords. This is the most beautiful Ace of Swords. The wand suit in this deck is my favorite. It is just perfection. It is beautiful. It is yellow and pink, which are my favorite colors. And I think the thing that categorizes the wand suit are little fairy creatures, and they're just beautiful. They're just absolutely stunning. I just said that I wouldn't get a double, but I feel like I do want to get a double because this deck I've used pretty heavily, and I want to have like a pristine deck. And they're mass market. I don't think they're, you know, at risk of being like bought out or sold out or not able to be found anymore. But I don't know what I would do if I couldn't have this deck. I think I would really lose it. I would be really, really upset. So this is one of those decks that I need to have, and if I can't have it, I'll buy a double of it. Like, it's a non-negotiable. This is the deck of all decks for me, like in terms of art, in terms of the packaging, in terms of the freaking holographic design on the box. Like, everything about it is just chef's kiss beautiful. All right, the next deck I have here, number 3, I have the Amalfi Oracle. Okay, this is really interesting. This is a newer set to me. It's one of those Oracle deck situations that has a large outer box. First of all, as soon as you open up the large outer box, you see this beautiful inside. It is so cool. And I found this through Kellyanne Maddox, who got it as a present, I believe. Right on the top, you've got this beautiful full color, I believe it's full color. I don't want to speak before... Yes, full color guidebook. It's pretty long. It's like 150 pages. It's called Living with a Feather Heart, 42 Ideals of Maat in Daily Life. I don't know if it's Maat or Maat, but this is Egyptian. So Egyptian mythology, Egyptian pantheon. I am not super well versed in it. I'm actually not super well versed in any pantheon. Like, as soon as I started witchcraft and I got into the whole thing, I wasn't really looking to deity work and pantheonic work, studies of mythology and stuff like that. It kind of just came to me. It was like brought to me. So I'm like trying to figure things out as I go. But I did not know this. The Amalfi Oracle has to do with, I mean, Amalfi, I believe, is one of the deities of the underworld. And that is, I think, no coinkydink for me personally, because I have a personal relation to Hades, which I'll get to in a little bit. With the Amalfi Oracle, Egyptian pantheon, I was very, very inspired by that. I didn't really know that when I went into it. I just saw the illustrations and thought it was beautiful, and I got it. But as soon as I got to actually digging through the cards, I realized that these 42, what do they call them? The 42 ideals of Maud in daily life, they really resonate with me. Like, this is the only time I've opened up an Oracle deck and gone, oh shit, like, that's crazy. Because for the most part, Oracle decks are like very light, you know, like everything is like, you're the best, babe, like keep on going, take a rest, rejuvenate, meet your friends, you know, touch some trees, touch some grass, like have a good time, relax, protect yourself. You know, it's usually like very, like fine and dandy stuff. I don't know how else to put it. Not that it's not useful. I mean, I have as many Oracle decks as the next gal over, but and like some of them are dark and like mysterious and whatever. And I also am a little bit prone to excessively wanting to search for some of that like darkness in text. But this one is neither light nor dark. It just tells you as it is. It reminds me like a stern sister. So I'm going to go through some of the examples here. One of the cards, I honor virtue. I speak with sincerity. I am humble. I regard all altars with respect. I invoke laughter. I do good. I give offerings that are genuine. I create harmony. I am kind. I affirm that all life is sacred. I do the best that I can. I honor animals with reverence. I listen to opposing opinions. I respect the property of others. I take only what I need. I spread joy. I live in truth. I speak with good intent. I hold purity in high esteem. I am trusted in my relationships. I keep the waters pure. I communicate with compassion. I am open to love in various forms. I achieve with integrity. I am accepting. What is this one? I converse with awareness. I offer words with good intent. I consume only my fair share. I follow my inner guidance. I keep my own counsel. You know, so there's lots of inspiring, sorry, I have this like up and down. There's lots of inspiring decks in here that include imagery and include messages that we don't always get in Oracle decks. I feel like a lot of Oracle decks are all about like you being the best and like you having everything you need. And this one has these ideals that are not only very pertinent to real life and ask you to kind of like take a second look at yourself. Like the one that says, I consume only my fair share, like that one really hit me. And I think I actually said, oh shit, when I looked at that one. And some of them, like, you know, I listen to opposing opinions. Like I accept, you know, I don't know, like I don't invoke like unnecessary drama or whatever. Like there's versions of that. And the fact that these are cards that teach you those things and remind you to do those things is amazing, one. And then two, the fact that it's linked to a cultural piece is beautiful. So I learned a little bit, you know, for example, I pulled like the I Honor Virtue card, and it talked about the traditional ancient Egyptian virtues. And it was really interesting because, you know, we take the idea of virtue to be like for granted, but the idea of virtue is different in every culture, in every nation, in every group of people throughout history. And so going through this deck, not only is the art beautiful, it's kind of got this flat, bold graphic design. And when I say flat, I don't mean like it's ugly. I mean flat as in it's flat washes of color. You don't have like tons of realistic shading, which I like a more illustrative style. And it has cultural significance. It has really wise teachings for every day. It is beautiful. I mean, everything about this is fantastic. And it wasn't super expensive either. I think I got this on Amazon, so that was a great one. Okay, the next thing I have in here is actually a little bit surprising. I was surprised when I actually went to do this, that the next deck that I wanted was the Dreaming Way Lenormand deck. So I love this. The artist Quan Shina, I have the Dreaming Way Tarot as well, but the Lenormand deck is my favorite. The Dreaming Way Tarot deck has a little bit of an attitude with me. We're like repairing our relationship, but it's got like a spunk to it that I don't know how to handle. But the Lenormand deck is interesting. It's a totally different system of divination, so you have to learn exactly how the Lenormand cards pair together, what they mean, the positions, and stuff like that. But the definitions are a lot more straightforward, and there's not nearly as many of them. I think there's 36 in total, whereas for the tarot decks, you have to know all 78 cards and how they might interact with each other. What the Lenormand does is it combines certain things to answer questions pretty directly. It's just like a very direct divination system. The way that I had it explained to me is like Lenormand just tells you what the situation is, and tarot tells you the situation as well as like some of the factors that you might have to consider within it. So I actually really do enjoy the Lenormand system, and I've used it to divinate some really important stuff. So I don't tend to do really big divinatory readings about like fortune telling. It's not like really like if it's not in the locus of my control, or if it's not something super tangible in the everyday, I don't tend to need to ask questions. Like it's only when I really feel like I want to, if I'm going through something or someone in my life is going through something. Like, you know, do I want to leave? Like, you know, is there anything that I need to know about my job? Is there something on the horizon for relationships? Like something specific about future telling. that this deck actually does very well. So of the readings that I've done, I think I've done like a handful, like probably 5 or 6. They are all extremely lucid, very, very accurate, and there's something really charming not only about the art, but the system itself. So I've really enjoyed this, and it's pocket-sized too, so sometimes I carry this around with me, and it just makes a great activity. Not to mention the art is beautiful. Let me just flash through some of the cards for you guys, because I do want to show you Conchina's work is beautiful. So yeah, there's something really, really charming about this deck. Not just the art, not just the size, not just the format of the Lenormand style, but all of those pieces together really makes this a beautiful and not extravagant, but very practical deck for me to hold on to. So I love this one. If I only had 10 decks, I definitely would want to keep a different divination system along with my tarot and oracle, and this would be the one of choice. If you haven't already, I would also check out her tarot set. That one was done with a Buddhist monk from South Korea as well, and that was really interesting, and also made by US Game Systems. This one is a great one. All right, the next one is the Dark Woods Tarot. This is another one of my decks that I would not be able to part with this, honestly speaking. I got this one pretty recently. I don't want to say super recently. I probably got it like a month or 2 ago. And the Dark Wood Tarot comes with a big, chunky guidebook. It's like a real big one. This one has probably, 300 pages. And it has like a whole narrative story that you go through. But I have to say, this deck does not bullshit with me. I mean, it is really intense. What did I write? The deck of my innermost mind. I know this deck to be accurate because it's a reflection of my inner self. Cuts straight to the heart of the issue and doesn't sugarcoat anything. Also very easy to read intuitively from the illustrations. So that is pretty much all you need to know. I had an instant bond with this deck. When I say instant, I mean like as soon as I opened this up and did a deck interview, it was like, yep, we're doing this, this, and this. This is what you gotta do. This is what I'm gonna do. And it has kept its word ever since. I have edged the deck in black just because I think it looks really nice in black. Originally it came with, like the plain white card backings, and I did not like that. I did not like it. It looked raw. It looked bad. So I went and I edged it. It's not perfect, but I actually don't mind. It was really interesting. I figured the first deck I would ever edge would be a deck that I was okay with tossing. Like if it came out really horrendous, and I had a few decks that I was like, I guess if it's not good, I could like rehome it, or I wouldn't be devastated if I lost it. But then I found out that this deck would be the perfect deck, because if it was totally screwed up, I would still love and cherish this deck, and it wouldn't reduce my ability to hold its status in high esteem, which is very interesting because for me, I'm like very, very highly aesthetically driven, and I can have perfectionistic tendencies. So for me to look at this and say, you are perfect, and if you had mistakes on you that I caused, I would still find you perfect. I've never felt that with anything before. I definitely would have just like replaced it, especially because this deck is only like $25 or something like that. But there's something about this one in particular that I tried, I loved, I fell in love with. There was something that we clicked together. It saw to me, I saw to it, and very rarely can I feel like a deck of cards like understand me, and then I can look at it and understand all I need to know just from the pictures. It was just a great moment for me to see that the deck is not just what it is on the surface, but it's also the connection that I have. And so the fact that there's smudges and I messed up the edging or whatever, like it actually is a testament to the fact that I don't care. And, if I had done this with any other deck, I would have cared. So there's nothing in particular, like I can't recommend this because it's, good for beginners, or it has like great representation. In fact, it doesn't have great representation at all. Like all the women are hot, skinny, white women. Or maybe they're not white, but they're definitely they have same face syndrome, which if you're an artist, it means that like all of the characters look the same. All they have is like different facial expressions and different poses, but they all have the same body type, like it's all conventionally attractive men and women. All the poses look similar, all of the shapes and heights, like there's no variation here. It's not the Trungles deck at all. But it is evocative for me. It's a very powerful deck. So yeah, none of these recommendations are me signing off on the artist or the producer or the publisher's choice of representation, or like feeling like the representation is exactly what it needs to be. It's just that like I have a connection with the decks, so I just want to make that very clear. I do understand that this deck is very, very limited in terms of what they are showing here, but I don't care. I mean, like in terms of my personal practice, this deck sees through me and into me, and I can see myself reflected back in this. And this is one of the first decks, kind of like the Cosmic Slumber, but more visceral. Like this deck feels like that deck, but more visceral, because whenever I read, it just enhances exactly what I'm thinking. I know you're supposed to go into tarot with a very, very empty mind, and I do. I definitely do the whole like grounding, centering, releasing all your thoughts, like seeing them pass by, letting go, having a neutral state of mind. But sometimes there is something that is in your life and maybe you're not thinking about it at the moment actively, but this deck will definitely shine a spotlight right on that particular issue, and it'll get you, man. I mean, recently I used this deck to kind of prepare myself for a family gathering, which was difficult. I mentioned earlier, family is a difficult topic for me. And it did give me exactly what I needed to hear, and I got through that family gathering, and I learned something about myself. I learned something about this deck, and again, it did not miss. It did not miss. This deck does not miss at all. Okay, next we've got two decks that are important because they are instrumental in deity work, and they are used exclusively for deity work. Oh my gosh. So like I mentioned before, I do work with Hades, and that was like a whole thing in itself. I don't know if I'm going to get into it on this channel, but yeah, basically this was the deck that he chose, and or I don't want to say the deck that he chose. I don't really even know how this happened. It was just, we were using, I think, a pendulum at first, and then the pendulum can only go so far, and then we ended up choosing a tarot deck, I think, together, or through my intuition. I honestly don't even remember how it happened. It happened quite a while ago. If I went through my Book of Shadows, I could probably find the exact entry of the date that I started this, but ever since then, and I think even before then, I picked up this deck, and you know, I was just attracted to it, but it's not a deck that I typically would go for. So this is the Unknown Tarot by Shaheen Miro, and it is a collage style tarot deck. So it's a modern kind of collage deck. It has realistic representations of people and things, which is not my favorite. So not the things, like the things are pretty flat, but the people are real, and it's kind of got like a painterly style, collage style. I have quite a few, like it's kind of similar to Tarot of Mystical Moments, but not quite as vintage looking, and a little bit similar to other styles. Like I think the Vintage Tarot is also like that, or the Tarot of I can't remember. There's a bunch of tarot decks that are like this. They're not my favorites. Just generally speaking, I have a lot of them sitting on my shelf. But yeah, these are the cards, and I'll talk a little bit about the stories now. I mean, do I have to talk about it that much? I mean, it's my deity work card. And so whenever I need to commune with deity, whenever I need to figure something out, if I need advice from my dad, I will go to this deck, and it works really well. It works very, very well. I think one of the reasons why I like this deck in particular is because the little white book that comes with this deck has slightly off-kilter meanings for some of the cards. And I don't mean to say that they're off-kilter in the sense that I think they're inaccurate or weird. I just mean that sometimes I can read this with the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith definition, and sometimes using the little white book gives a totally different meaning that answers me in a voice that I feel is more accurate to what I tend to believe is like, it tends to it tends to line up more accurately with what I'm feeling from the deity communion. Does that make sense? Like if I just were to read any old Rider-Waite-Smith deck and ask him to speak through that, I'm sure it would be fine. But there's something about this particular association, the associations that are made in this book, that make the symbolism more clear. It makes the messages more clear. Sometimes it's more relevant to like the particular thing that I'm asking for. And it's pretty interesting. I don't know. I'm reading this book on Shintoism, and one of the things that it mentions is that in the West, we have a really strong idealization or a really strong fascination with being able to put into words that which we feel theologically or spiritually. And if you can't convey exactly what it is that you feel and why, and you can't explain your spirituality with concrete evidence and like proper wording, it makes it less real or less valued. And I think that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now. I cannot fully explain why this deck pairs so well with that particular archetype, but it works very well. And there's something about my connection with my archetype, my connection with my patron deity, and the way that he speaks through these cards and to me that I feel like works and aligns very, very well. And I just don't want to change that. I don't want to change that. It's sacred and it's beautiful to me. So that is what we use. And this deck probably gets used a lot more than a lot of my other decks. And it's got that like very delicate gold gilding, but it's still holding up pretty well. I don't know what the deal is with gilding that people don't like. I mean, maybe eventually I'll figure it out, but I like gilding. And yeah, sometimes it gets scuffed up. But I've heard some people say that it hurts them. I've never had pain from gilding. So personally, I do like a good gilded edge. Okay, the next one is a very recent one. This is the Murder of Crows Tarot. I saw a walkthrough of this, and the card that I saw was the High Priestess card, and immediately after that I ordered it, and I got a tarot reading recently, and someone said that one of my spirit guides was someone who chose to represent themselves as the High Priestess. So that was interesting. I'm going to try to find the High Priestess card, but it's going to be pretty difficult to do that. Okay, this is the High Priestess card. And I saw this card and I thought, I have to have this deck. This deck is absolutely beautiful. If you haven't seen the Murder of Crows Tarot yet, it's a completely black and white deck. It is absolutely stunning. It has this very eerie, otherworldly quality to it. the author is Charles Harrington, and the artist is Corrado Roy, and they did a spectacular job with these cards. I mean, they are truly evocative. I've never had a deck that had imagery that made me like feel emotions. Like, I don't know how to say it, but this deck took my breath away when I first saw it. I saw it in a walkthrough, or maybe it was a comparison. It was one of these like quick videos on YouTube where someone was just showing the cards and they weren't giving commentary or anything, but I saw the quick flip through of these cards and it made me feel feelings that I'd never felt for another tarot deck before. And especially when I saw that High Priestess, it was game over for me. I knew I had to get it. So I ordered it immediately, and only moments later, I got that tarot reading in the mail, and it said that I have someone who represents herself as the High Priestess watching me. And so I thought, yeah, this is going to be the one for our deity work. So yes, matron deity goes in here. She speaks through this deck. She's a little bit of a darker entity, which is interesting. I like didn't take myself to be someone who would commune with chthonic deity. But that's what we're dealing with, I guess. I mean, I didn't choose the emo life. The emo life chose me. So yeah, that's what we're working with. We're working with kind of this energy whenever I do deity work. Next one is my Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I mean, are you a tarot reader if you don't have one? Actually, I don't have, this is actually not even called the Rider-Waite-Smith. This is all the Pamela Coleman Smith's deck, RWS tarot deck. And this is the 111 year, so the 111 year anniversary deck. So I thought that was beautiful. This has very negative reviews online because people think that it's ugly, but I think this is beautiful. It's got an extra vintage appeal to it. It's very, very washed out. The colors are not even and consistent. Like you can see some of the, I'm looking in the mirror. I don't know if it's picking up on camera. Some of the cards are very blue. Some of the cards are very green, and some of the cards are very gray. It has like a genuinely distressed feel to it. Like if I pick up these 4 cards, for example, all 4 of these chips, can you see that the borders are like all different colors? I don't know if it's catching on camera, but all 4 of these are different hues, and they don't look like a cohesive set. I think that's part of the charm of these. Like they look genuinely distressed. They look genuinely vintage. The same Rider-Waite-Smith illustrations, but the colors are toned down significantly. And this is the only Rider-Waite-Smith deck that I can tolerate. I just feel like a lot of the decks are just so punchy, so bright, so like difficult to, you know, look at without feeling, oh, my eyes are being like pierced. But the coloration, you guys have all seen the Rider-Waite-Smith, but I just want to show like the coloration on this one is very, very harmonious. Not that the original wasn't harmonious, but it was a lot going on, right? So this one, it kind of looks a little bit more grayscale. When you have 6 or 10 or 12 cards out, it just is less on the eyes, I feel, to have a very cohesive color scheme where none of the colors really stand out all too much. And I love this deck. I love it. It's fantastic. It's great. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. It's a classic in my arsenal of stuff that I work with. The quality of the cards is great. My box is a little worse for wear because I've used it quite a few times, and I use this deck whenever I do like deep dives, deep studying, and I use it as like my anchor, and then I do a lot of comparisons with other decks as well. So yeah, obviously I'd have to keep that one. That one is great. What did I say? It's also my only original RWS deck. Yeah, so I don't have any of the other ones. If I were, I maybe would have picked the borderless, but I do like the coloration of this one better, so it really is like the one for me. In our 9th spot, we have the Nicoletta Cacholi Tarot. I don't actually know if this is Nicoletta Cacholi or Nicoletta Cacholi. I think it's Cacholi. This is a beautiful deck. So this is the front. This is the back. And you've got some beautiful cards on the sides. This deck, let's see what I wrote. I wrote, childlike wonder, mystical imagery, the only deck with imagery so powerful that some of the pictures transcend verbal explanation. One simply has to sit with the images and really wrestle with the feelings to make sense of it all. Beautiful to read intuitively and a very meaty deck. So that pretty much embodies exactly what I'm thinking. So on the back, you've got this very subdued kind of holly print. But on the front, boy, oh boy, do you have some evocative imagery. I mean, some of these are upside down. A lot of these are upside down. I don't know if these are oil paintings or if they are colored in pencil or pastels or what. I don't know what the medium is. But these decks, these cards are extremely evocative of some freaky, freaky shit. Like when I go through this, I feel feelings. I feel... They're like visceral pictures. I mean, you've got violence, you've got animals, you've got children, you've got potentially, like, there's one where it potentially looks like sexual harassment as well. I mean, it's some deep stuff. It's potentially disturbing to some. I mean, I've definitely seen online where people are like, this has triggered me. It gave me something like that I like really didn't want to bring up from my childhood. So if you've got that kind of thing, I definitely wouldn't recommend this deck. If you are triggered by certain imagery that is disturbing, or like dark themes, or the combination, like the juxtaposition of like childlike, doll-like features with things that are upsetting and graphic, I definitely would say no. But like this, it's so evocative, you know, like you can just like spend hours and hours. And I've done a thing where I've actually gone through the deck and I've wrote out what the symbolism means to me in each card and how it relates to the meaning. So for instance, the Three of Swords, right? We all know what that feels like, but look at this. Look at this Three of Swords and tell me that that doesn't make you feel something. Because we've all seen those beautiful little butterfly specimens, you know, very, very delicately pinned together, you know, like it's just, you know, she has this ability as an artist to teach you something with something that you feel like you've already seen before. Like, okay, look at this Hierophant and tell me what you feel. Do you not feel feelings when you see this monkey dressed up as a pope with the tiny little figures on the bottom bowing to him, and the size and the scope and the blackness of the void behind him and the candy and like everything about this is just, it's a lot. It feels like 78 fine art pieces that could be hung up in like actual posters, like actual paintings on walls, and I could go through the gallery and be like, wow, it feels like I'm really experiencing something. And I have it in this tiny little tarot deck. I've seen Saturnarium say that this deck is fantastic for inner child work. I've done inner child work, I've done shadow work, I've just used this as a regular daily draw kind of deck. I have used this for ritual work. I mean, it is a really good deck. If I had to only have 10, I would definitely include this one. The little white book, the Lo Scarabeo books are not great. Very, very minimal, but I didn't buy this deck for the explanations. I bought this deck because the imagery in here is very, very powerful. It's a mass market deck, it's very accessible, but again, it's not for the faint of heart. Definitely is disturbing. And it's a different kind of disturbing than like the Murder of Crows. This one is just like, ooh, dark and gloomy, but this one is like, it's gonna make you feel things, you know? It's gonna make you feel things and experience things that you didn't want to experience. The next one that I have, actually I guess this is technically the last one that I can talk about, the Fairy Lights Oracle. This one is made by Lucia Matioli, and I love this one. This one is a deck that was the first, this is the first one. This is also a Lo Scarabeo deck. This is one of the first ones that I purchased with, oh yeah, so I wrote purchase for a fun time, but ended up with a serious and deep time. First experience ever escaping into a tarot deck, cuts to the heart of the issue as well. Accurate and precise divination, evocative imagery, pairs well with the Fairy Oracle, which I didn't include, but the Fairy Oracle is this guy over here. And usually I'll do a reading in both of them. And I wanted to have like a fairy collection of like cute decks, but turns out I got ghostly, terrifying decks of the Fae, which I know that's what they actually are. Not that they're terrifying, but I feel like the Fae are portrayed in a certain way in media, and I didn't know. I wanted like that experience. I wanted like the cute, fluffy, airy experience, and not whatever the hell this is. This is a deck that is really dreary, honestly. It's a pretty dreary deck, but it is accurate as fuck. It's really good in terms of getting you where you need to go. Really kind of not messing around. I mean, I guess that's what I'll call this deck. I guess I really appreciate a good hard deck that does not mess around, that does not mince words, it does not mince feelings. And another thing with this deck is like, it takes you there. It takes you there. There's imagery that is, I don't know, like I was able to do, what is it called? Pathworking. That I can do with this deck. I mean, some of these decks, like if I wanted to do pathworking in the Star Spinner Tarot, I don't think it would be nearly as evocative. But this one, oh my god, there's something in the images here that just like, what is going on here? Like, does that not make you feel, I mean, I know what's going on, but does that not just make you feel unsettled? Like, there's just a lot going on. Like, look at this one. Oh, the art is just so powerful. I think that's key for me. Like, if you have a deck that is powerful in terms of imagery, symbolic, if it makes me feel feelings in my gut, if it's visceral, if it's a little bit uncomfy, and yet the messages come through very clearly, there's enough meat for me to get into, and also I can lose myself in it, that makes a great deck. And of course the art style has to vibe with me. But I mean, there are humans as well, like there's humanoid figures, for example, this one. No, there's a lot. I just pulled the other ones because, I don't know, there's something really quite lovely. So for instance, the Nine of Pentacles, or the Nine of Coins, or the discs, or whatever, I don't know what they're called in this particular deck. I got this card paired with one in the Fairy Oracle that looked almost identical, and it was just uncanny to have this situation come up. So yeah, I often find that this deck gives you cards that you weren't expecting. It gives you messages that you weren't expecting. For a while, my husband was working with this for his deity work, and it was fantastic as well. So yeah, I think that would be the very last one if I can only have 10. Granted, this is my YouTube channel, and I want to give some honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention I'm going to mention, I don't have it with me because I didn't bring it in this little basket. But the first Oracle deck that I want to bring up is the Pure Magic Oracle. It is a great, it's a really simple Oracle deck. It's one of those like nice, you know, good feelings ones. It's not one that's like kind of dark and gonna ask you to like do some shadow work, whatever. But I like it as kind of a daily ritual pulling card. Like if you're gonna do, for instance, if you do like a card of the day, which I always do, I do a card of the day and then what's the context and what's the advice, you could just pull one of those oracle cards and it can give you kind of like a ritual focus of the day, which I really enjoy. Sometimes I want to sit down and I want to have like a witchy moment at my altar space and I don't know exactly what it is I want to do. Like, yeah, I could do some meditation, I could do some journaling, I could do some shadow work, whatever, but I kind of have stuff that I do every day regardless, and that's not what makes a ritual like a ritual. You know, it's not going to be meaty enough. And so sometimes I will use that oracle deck to pull out something meatier. So sometimes it'll say like protection, sometimes it'll say like ancestor work, or it'll say, you know, divination or whatever. And it'll give you kind of like something that you can focus on for the day. So I really enjoyed that one. And I haven't heard actually too many people talking about it online, which is a little bit strange to me because I think it's highly underrated and it's very, very good. And the next final runner-up slash honorable mention are the Seasons of the Witch Oracle decks, which are super, super popular online, and for good reason, because they're good, but I obviously couldn't include them because there's two out already, the Samhain and the Yule one, and Beltane is coming out, so I'm getting that, budgeting that into my depth year as well. I actually got the Yule one first, and I'm going through the Yule one now as we go through December, and I was using it in the later half of November as well, and then I got the Samhain one, but I'm probably gonna have to wait until closer to Samhain for next year, but I am really, really in love with the decks. I mean, not necessarily the art. I mean, I think the art is good. There's something about the art that speaks to me, but it's not the polished art like in the Star Spanner Tarot, you know what I mean? Like the art style is very radically different, and I don't mean to say one is better than the other, but the Trungle's art style is more up my personal taste alley. But there is something about the art in the Seasons of the Witch Oracle series that speaks to me. It's very evocative, and that's what art is meant to do. It's supposed to make you feel things. And so I have to say I enjoy that Oracle series. It's just that I didn't have room for 2 or 3 slots because I know the Beltane one's going to be great as well. So yeah, that is my if I could only keep 10 response to Katie Flowers. I would absolutely die if she actually watched this. So I'm going to try to get this to her. And if anyone is watching, then I would love for you to leave me a comment and let me know if you've done this tag, if you've got 10 tarot decks that you like and that you wouldn't be able to live without. But that is my current list. I mean, obviously it's subject to change. This is just like what I love for right now. But I do have a lot of cards, and hopefully I'm not going to be getting too many more cards in my depth year, during my depth year. But, you know, that's not to bar out the chance of me getting more cards in the future. You know, obviously I have a long life ahead, God willing, in my tradition of the craft, and so there's lots of time for me to collect and garner and curate even more and more and more beautiful, beautiful illustrated decks for me to work with in my lifetime. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here and kind of listening. I'm so excited that we finally got this project off the ground and that I feel a little bit more comfortable sharing a little bit more about my journey. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I love you, and blessed be.